Picture this, a single message, just 3 tiny dots, zapping across 3,500 kilometers of open ocean in a blink. That's what happened back in 1901, and it absolutely changed the world. People called it the new magic, right? A total triumph of science. But what happens when that magic starts to spin out of control?
To get our heads around this, let's jump back in time, over a century ago, to a story that is a chillingly perfect mirror for our digital world today. It's all about a game-changing technology, a tidal wave of noise, and one single critical message that got lost in the static.
And what's wild is just how fast this new magic from 1901 turned into total chaos. See, within about a decade, the airwaves were a complete free-for-all. You had wealthy passengers sending personal messages, almost like early text messages, all jamming up the one single frequency that was also used for, important things like navigation. So in 1912, when an urgent iceberg warning was sent to the Titanic, it was just buried in all that chatter. And later, when the Titanic sent its own desperate SOS, the closest ships, they never even heard it.
So, this disaster, which was totally preventable, it gave humanity its first real gut punch of a lesson in what we now call information overload. It was so shocking that it forced countries around the world to get together and act. They created the first international laws for the airwaves, setting up separate protected channels just for emergencies. They basically drew a hard line in the sand between life or death signals and casual noise.
And that brings us right back to today, doesn't it? Because now we have billions of voices online, all shouting at the same time. It's kind of like how the bright lights of a big city create so much light pollution that you can't see the stars anymore. Are we, right now, creating so much digital noise that we're missing our own generation's warnings from the Titanic?
Okay, so that's accidental noise. But what happens when that digital noise is weaponized on purpose? Let's look at a recent and, frankly, jaw-dropping example of how an algorithm was used to manipulate the democratic process itself.
Okay, meet Calin Georgescu. Just a few weeks before the 2024 presidential election in Romania, this guy was a political nobody. Seriously, the polls had him at maybe 3–5% support. Most people in the country had never even heard his name.
And then, boom, in just 2 weeks, everything flipped. A massive, sudden wave of online support just appeared out of thin air. On Election Day, Georgescu shocked everyone by winning the first round with 33% of the vote. Officials were so stunned, so suspicious, that they immediately demanded TikTok freeze all its data so they could investigate what on earth just happened.
What they found was, well, it was both brilliant and terrifying. The goal wasn't to convince people one by one. The goal was to hack the platform itself. 25,000 dormant TikTok accounts, a lot of them automated bots, were all switched on at the exact same moment. They just flooded the network with pro-Georgescu videos, which tricked TikTok's algorithm into thinking this nobody candidate was suddenly the hottest trend in the country. And the algorithm, just doing its job, pushed that content out to millions of real Romanians, creating this powerful and completely artificial illusion of popular support.
So, you might be wondering, how can an algorithm be hacked like that? Well, the most important thing to get is that these algorithms, they aren't neutral. They're basically mirrors. They're trained on the vast, messy, and often biased data from all of us on the internet. For years, if you use Google Translate, it would automatically say, he is a doctor and she is a nurse. Why? Because it learned from millions of texts that reflected our own societal biases. Or look at Amazon. They had to scrap a hiring AI because it taught itself to penalize resumes from women. It wasn't programmed to be sexist, it just learned from a decade of hiring data that favored men. And this gets to the very heart of the problem. As the Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen revealed, their own internal research showed that content that made people angry got 5 times more engagement. Now, this wasn't some evil conspiracy. It was just simple math. Anger drives clicks and comments, and that engagement keeps people on the platform longer. The AI simply learned that outrage was the best way to maximize the company's metrics. Okay, that's a lot. And it sounds pretty bleak, I know. But what if we could flip the script? What if we could use this exact same technology, not to hack democracy, but to actually upgrade it? Let's look at a totally different path, one pioneered in Taiwan, that shows us another future is absolutely possible.
So our story here starts with a full-blown crisis. It's 2014, and the Taiwanese government is about to rush through this huge, mostly secret trade deal with China. The country was completely split down the middle, and it led to these massive protests, where students actually took over and occupied the parliament building for 24 days. But here's where things get really interesting.
Instead of just chanting slogans, these protesters, a lot of them were tech-savvy hacktivists, they started building things. They built a website where any citizen could just type in their job and see exactly how this trade deal would personally affect them. And even more amazing, they built a platform called Polis.s. It used AI not to make the angriest voices louder, but to listen to everybody and find the points where people surprisingly agreed with each other. They weren't just shouting, they were building understanding.
And the results of this whole new approach, I mean, they're just staggering. In less than a decade, Taiwan went through this incredible transformation, not just in public trust, but across pretty much every measure of a healthy democracy. They're now considered one of the top-ranked democracies in the entire world.
I mean, just look at this one number. Public trust in the government. It shot up from a pathetic 15% during the protests to around 70% today. This wasn't some political miracle. This was achieved by using technology to make government radically transparent and truly collaborative. And get this, one of the main hacktivists from the protest, a woman named Audrey Tang, actually became the country's first ever digital minister.
So where does that leave us? It all comes back to this one core idea. The technology itself, it isn't good or evil. It's a mirror. It just reflects and amplifies whatever we tell it to do.
So, the same basic tech gives us two completely different futures. The Romanian election showed us the path of AI for control, using algorithms to manipulate us and drive us apart. But Taiwan, that shows us the path of AI for collaboration, using those same algorithms to build consensus, create transparency, and bring people together.
In the end, the technology isn't in the driver's seat. We are. This isn't a story about robots taking over. It's a story about the choices we are making right now. The future of democracy isn't really about what AI can do. It's about what we choose to do with it. The question isn't what the algorithm wants. The real question we have to ask ourselves is, what kind of society do we want to build?